Read the Signal debate for yourself and make up your own mind. A journalist leaked a discussion by US leaders to okay an attack on Yemen, which apparently killed 53 people, including 5 children, according to Yemeni sources. Now, a group called the Houthis, upset about the slaughter of families in Gaza, have been disrupting shipping from countries which support Israel's actions. Now, the small group, as you can see, has 19 members, and Michael Waltz is chairing the conversation. Now, it gets interesting here when J.D. Vance complains about the proposal. He says only 3% of US trade runs through this area, while 40% of European trade does. So basically, the US is doing something for Europe, he says. Now, he doesn't seem to really care about people being killed in Yemen. What really bothers him is that they're doing something helpful for Europe. He does not want to be helpful to Europe. So Vance wants to delay this for a while to get the messaging right. Now, the CIA guy, John Ratcliffe, jumps in to say, well, he's okay with delaying it. Pete Hegseth, the war minister, says he understands the concerns, but they do not want to look indecisive, and Israel may take certain actions that complicate matters. He says that there's a risk that we don't get to start this on our own terms. Still, he hedges his bets, saying that we can pause, but he thinks we should go ahead with it. Mike Waltz, who's convening the discussion, then responds to the points raised by J.D. Vance, saying that while the Europeans should be doing this, he's right, they're actually incapable of doing pretty much anything at all to wipe out the people in Yemen causing problems. But, he adds, they will make a list of all their expenditures in the operation and send a bill to the Europeans, who will then have to cough up all the money to cover everything. We're the only ones with the capability, unfortunately. That's his argument. Europeans must spend more on weapons. Then J.D. Vance changes his position and says, okay, if you think we should do it, then go ahead. Let's go. This seems to be aimed at Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz, who definitely want to go ahead. I just hate bailing Europe out again, Vance says. Let's make sure our messaging is tight here. So they're basically having a hate session against the Europeans. I fully share your loathing of European freeloading, says Pete Hegseth. It's pathetic, but Mike is right. We're the only ones on the planet, on our side, who can do this. Nobody else is even close. The question is timing. I feel like now is a good time as any, given POTUS' directive to reopen shipping lanes. I think we should go. Now, SM here is Steve Miller, who represents Trump, basically. His comment is interesting. Trump has given the green light, but Miller wants to know what they do if Europe refuses to pay up. They don't actually discuss a military attack on Europe, but they want to have some way of pressurizing Europe to hand over the cash. Anyway, it soon transpires that Pete Hegseth has taken this discussion as approval, and the military is given the go-ahead. Hegseth then shares details of the operation. He gives the timing of each launch and the weapons used and so on. Now, the US has a secret weapon on their side, God. Godspeed to our warriors, says Hegseth. J.D. Vance, another good Christian man, replies, I will say a prayer for victory. And that gets 2 likes from others in the chat. Apparently God is a pro-war Republican who believes that it's perfectly good for the richest country in the world to attack the poorest. Then there's a gap, and a couple of hours later, Mike Waltz comes back and says, building collapsed, multiple positive ID, amazing job. He mentions Pete Hegseth and Kurilla, referring to a military general of that name. And the reference to the IC indicates the intelligence community. Now, the story they're telling is that they'd identified the top missile guy from among the Houthi people and spotted him walking into his girlfriend's building and then whacked it so hard with missiles that it collapsed, presumably killing him and all the other people who just happened to be in that building. Excellent, says J.D. Vance. A good start, says John from the CIA. And Waltz puts up some emojis, a punch, a fist, and a flame. That's what you do when you kill people these days. You share some suitable emojis. And then it basically devolves into a load of self-congratulatory comments, saying how wonderful everyone has been. What have they achieved that's so marvellous? Well, they've been sitting in their comfortable homes or offices or 6-star hotel rooms, while 53 people in a poor country are blown to smithereens. And that is modern life.